the book I'm working on to publish this year is called Dragon's Twilight. I just finished the draft on Thursday
Wow.
and got all the fun editing. And depending on how life goes with it, I like to do a Kickstarter and then indie launch after that. I
Nice.
actually have a cover, but I don't know how well it shows up because I'm still on a tablet. But yeah, oh, that shows up pretty
Well,
good.
that looks incredible. Okay, what's the
Yeah,
blurb? That looks amazing.
I'm still kind of working on the blurb because I got mostly the dragon's point of view, but the quick and dirty blurb is the main characters. I have two dragons and a human that are the main characters. The ones on the picture, I have Kragnar, who's an ice dragon, and he made an oath 300 years ago to a queen after like saving them and realized, because the undead were taking over the city, and he helped that queen by destroying things with his what became his life mate. So at the point of this story, his life mate's already gone, and then he's trying to figure out how to just get on with life, hiding out as a human in a village near like the mountains he lived in. And oath crystal that he gave to the queen, well, the descendant finds it. He has to go on like this puzzle hunt. But he shows up with it in this village because the pendant will lead him to where the dragon's at. So, that starts a whole thing. So he knows that the corruption has started again in the city, and there's the whole path of finding their things because, you know, Kragner is hiding himself, though Mayor's son figured out he was the dragon all along. But, you know, before he leaves, the prince is hiding himself as a commander because the corruption actually killed his family off. So in the first couple of chapters, you actually, meet them and get to know them a little bit better, and they get started off on the journey of what's actually going to happen when they go save Neforia from corruption, and the last magic. So there's also a prophecy saying this is the last of dragons. So Kragnar's like, I'm probably gonna die in this because that's what the prophecy says, and the prince is like, I'm not sure I want to actually deal with all this too because he figures out he's inherited some of the magic from his ancestor. So, but he doesn't know how to use it, and it comes out at weird times when he prays to the Lord of Light. But he's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I don't want to be a magician either. So there's all that
Okay.
fun tacked in there.
So I think I got a world-ending apocalyptic infection going on. We have shape-shifting dragons and magic. I mean, that sounds pretty epic right there. What's your origin story? How long have you been writing and an author?
I started writing as a kid, and I actually did like draw and use construction paper and made my first book at 7. But as far as actually really being an author, it started with this book that came out 3 years ago.
Nice. Okay.
And this is a trilogy. The third book, so there's like this is the second book. So I have all this trilogy out already. Okay. And it follows these two as they go from the runaway princess trope all the way up to, having to prove who they are as a king and a queen. And I hit at my dragon's prophecy in the third book as an Easter egg, just for the fun of it, only because the idea came up. But and Tolkien got me into fantasy. The funny thing is like everybody talks about C.S. Lewis and Narnia. I don't think I read Narnia until I was like 30 something. So I'm like, oh, okay, they were kind of fun to read. But Tolkien was the first thing that kind of got me interested in, and then of course we got just got the guy talking about like fairy tales versus fantasy. And, so it's like, it's very interesting how that lays in there because in this trilogy, these guys have to overcome by their faith and learn to be who they are to be able to overcome all their things. And in the dragon story, there's a little bit of magic and stuff in there. So there's kind of like more fantasy in my dragon story. But it's part of like the history of my world. So it happens before my initial debut trilogy. and it's how like the Lord of Light was trying to shrink down, the magic and stuff in the world because it was being used wrong, and he didn't want so much power because the dragons have ways of sucking up power from other places, and they could
So
get.
all of these books are in the same shared
So,
universe?
yes, they're all in the world of Carnum that I created, which I just took a D&D world from my early days and tweaked it and said, you know what? I can use this for a book. So yeah.
Well, that's fun. Okay, I need to have another conversation with you about how D&D and storytelling, because that's an ongoing fascination for me. But you had pitched a topic which I thought would be cool, which was how writing fiction is both fun and therapeutic. So what's your thoughts on that? 'Cause I totally agree, but what do you think?
So the fun part is like, even in the hard to write scenes, if I'm not actually having fun with my story, I'm not going to complete my story. That's just the way it is. As far as therapeutic, well, since my mom passed away on Easter, and then she was having a lot of health concerns, so it's like February through, middle of April, actually even up through some of last week was very long with everything with that. But I found that if I don't write, I feel totally off. It's like, and then just getting into my writing actually kind of lets my brain get away from thinking too much, and it can kind of digest it subconsciously. Just like when I can't figure out what I'm writing, I'll go do something else. My brain's on that. And so it kind of worked as a therapy. The thing that actually makes me cry sometimes when I'm writing this book is because like Kragnar lost his life mate and he's trying to figure that out. So there's a few things in there where he's doing that, and then I'm watching my father during this time and seeing how he's grieving. It's like it hits it hits spots.
It's
But
a way to be processing what
yeah.
you're experiencing yourself, and you're able to explore it in a different way through your writing, right?
Right, and the funny thing is, I started writing this book I had 60,000 words of it written before. Well, this book, I was still trying to figure out if I should trad publish or self-publish back in 22. So I started writing this other one, then this one turned into the trilogy. So, this one got backlayed, but it's just very interesting that in the process of finishing the draft and then knowing going into editing, I actually have real life things to work on to help me with editing it because of seeing how things. Because my dad's a lot like Kragner in some ways, so it's very
Wow.
interesting how that has turned out in the process.
Yeah. Well, first, I'm sorry for a lot of recent pain going down in your family that you've had to bear up under. What would your recommendations be for other authors who maybe have never thought of or allowed themselves to think of their fiction as something that could be therapeutic or a necessary kind of fun thing? It's like, oh, life is too serious, life is too hard right now. Now is a perfect time or excuse to not write ever. And in fact, you've turned that around and go, nope, this is actually maybe a more important time to keep this as part of the schedule. What goes through your mind? What would you recommend to them?
That if the story is in your head, just sit down and write it, even if you only do like 15 minutes or whatever. Just take a break from the other stuff and just have fun putting a few words down, or just journal, just write something. So just to because writers, we need to write. It's like I just naturally found that like writing through the thing you do have to understand is when you're going through that time as a writer, you're not gonna keep the schedule you normally take when there isn't all that stuff going on because your bandwidth is gonna be too small, but you still can take some time to just break, write a little something, let your subconscious digest real life while you're focusing on your writing.
Yeah. I think sometimes we can forget when things can get really, really difficult. If, especially when these difficult things are happening to other people that we know and love, we're still here and we still have to live and we still have to not just do right by ourselves, but do the kind of things that help us stay stable and be able to be helpful and strong for others. And so, probably like what you're describing, I'm curious what you think, because usually when I will write, I will feel like physically better. Like you say, writers got it right. Like we were given a specific gift or a love for stitching one word right after the other and just seeing what happens. And you literally can feel better after it, or at the very least, more centered or something. How do you feel, especially when you're going through a tough time?
That's basically sums it up pretty good. Yeah, because like you said, um, it does center you because you know that's the gift you have, and you have to use it. And then I have too many ideas, and even if I'm like grieving and stuff, my characters don't leave me alone. And they're like, I'm like,
Right.
I
Sure.
got so many other stories too that are gonna come around and stuff, and they're like, "Will you hurry up and get over to me?" I'm like, "You'll come out when God wants you to."
All right. My trauma needs to be handled now because dragons. Althea, where can folk find you online to maybe, I don't know, join your mailing list, perhaps pre-order your book when it's available, or get a look at the existing books that you've got?
So, I do have a website that's my name, altheadamgaard.com. Through there, you can link to my Substack, Tales of Carnum and Beyond. It's funny, I couldn't write the novel for a while because I was just after I got the trilogy done, working on this one, I took a break. But I serialized a whole novel based on something I wrote a long time ago that's a sci-fi, that's Cyborg Claude, that I just threw out as fun weekly thing from February of last year to February of this year. Of
Wow.
course, I left it free until the end of March, but you can still read the first 6 episodes, and it's like a beta read. I said, "This is a beta read. Just give me your comments. Have fun with it. I probably will turn it into a book someday, but I know it needs fixing, but here it is for the fun on the fly reading."
Nice. That's awesome. You have a fantastic last name, like the Damn Guard. Just sounds like an awesome group to join.
Well, that's the thanks to marrying a husband. His dad came over from Denmark. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I still joke that my mom, Althea's, comes out of Greek, but I am definitely Scotch Irish from all my heritage. So I have to joke that I think she took it from a soap opera lady that was on during the 60s when I was born.
Well, maybe you can hear my dog in the background. Althea, it was so nice to spend time with you. Thanks for jumping on. And I hope people check out your website and your books. I know
And
you've got a
and I'll
couple of
be
sessions in the expo.
yeah, at 4 p.m. I'll read the first chapter of this in this chat. If people want to know about the other book, well, you can ask about it because I have some of that too.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for jumping on the live stream. It was good to see you.